the organization of states in our country and UTs. What are the procedures and processes through which states can be formed and reorganized? You know that so many states have been formed. To begin with, in 1950s, we had just around 14-15 states, and now we have close to 30 states, more than 30 states and UTs if you put together, right? 28 states to be precise, right? And how these states are organized, how a state can be carved out of an existing state, how a state can be converted into a union territory, as it happened in the case of Jammu and Kashmir with the abrogation of Article 370, all the processes. And then another reasonable question we have to, these are just the constitutional provisions that we'll deal with, those are important. But then the issues, on what basis do you organize states? I mean, why do you say that, okay, this should become a separate state? Why? On what basis? The principal basis that has been used in India is language. Most of the states are linguistically organized. People who speak a certain language, if there are a majority speakers of a particular language in an area, around that a state has been created. Maharashtra, Marathi speakers, Punjab, Punjabi speakers. You got my point. UP, Hindi speakers, Karnataka, Kannada, Malayalam in Kerala, etc. Linguistic reorganization. But then we have used, and we have to also discuss whether this base is a viable base to organize states or to create states. Language is a basis. Jawaharlal Nehru was opposed to it, right? In fact, eventually he had to submit to public opinion, but his heart and mind was not in linguistic reorganization, but we'll talk about that, right? So, other bases have also been used. The principal basis for reorganization has been language only, but other bases like tribal ethnicity, the reorganization of several northeastern states, even Jharkhand, tribal predominant state. Then nowadays, in the recent past, very often there is a certain area in a state which says that this area is neglected by the state capital. The state government tends to ignore, whichever state government party comes to power in the state, they always tend to ignore this area, and that leads to development deficit in this area. So it's better we reconstitute this area into separate state. We'll look after our own development concerns. We'll have our own legislative assembly. We'll have our own chief minister over here. So on that basis, you can give examples of like Uttarakhand has been created, or Chhattisgarh has been created, or even the demand for creation of Telangana, which was created in 2014 it was created, was based on this logic of development deficit itself. So we'll see whether this is a viable basis of future reorganization. Then there is always the issue of small states versus big states. Are small states better, or are bigger states administratively more convenient? I mean, that one state which is almost like a nation. Obviously, I am talking about Uttar Pradesh. I normally say that states in India are of varying sizes. Small ones like Goa, Sikkim, small, right? Then medium sized, like states like Punjab, Haryana, etc. Then you can go to large. Then you can talk about extra large, right? And then you can talk about even double extra large, and then finally comes Uttar Pradesh, right? Or over above all this. There has been so much talk about, because Uttar Pradesh has a population of what, 20 to 23 crores, unmanageable as a state from one headquarters. So for a long time, there has been a demand to bifurcate it, trifurcate it, quadfurcate it, convert it into 5 states, 4 states. We'll discuss that in detail also. Then, there are so many other demands for statehood which exists even today. The most recent demand is Jammu and Kashmir UT is again demanding those leaders from the Gupkar alliance, right? Those parties which are the leaders of the parties which are prominent in Jammu and Kashmir. So they have formed a Gupkar alliance, which was rather irresponsibly referred to by Indian media as a Gupkar gang, etc. But so anyway, that's what the media does nowadays. So the Gupkar alliance is demanding that the statehood should be restored back to Jammu and Kashmir. Maybe not 370 special status, but then those issues we'll discuss separately when I come to J&K, right? But there is a demand for statehood, right? There is also a demand that the National Capital Territory, that is Delhi, this has been a demand coming from Arvind Kejriwal for a long time now. It should also be converted into a state. Is there a viable case for that? Then there are so many other demands. I mean, demands coming from places, an area in Bihar called Mithilanchal. Vidarbha wants to separate. There is a movement for Vidarbha state also, Saurashtra state also. Multiple movements for creating states in Uttar Pradesh, right? So many demands are there. What to do with these demands, right? Are they even viable demands? We'll discuss them. So it's not a small topic territory of India. Understand this thing, right? And I believe you are familiar with this thing, that the first major dose of reorganization in India took place in 1956. When new states were carved out, largely on the recommendation of, there was a body set up to recommend, to advise the government of India how we must go about creating our states. That was the States Reorganization Commission. Only one has been set up. And on that basis, linguistic reorganization was done. Details later. Now there are so many other statehood demands which are coming up today again. I mean, this is a question which I've been expecting for such a long time in mains, that is it time for us now to set up a fresh states reorganization commission to look at all these new demands which are coming up for statehood from a scientific rational perspective? Because if these decisions for granting statehood or not granting statehood are left to the government of the day, they always are the answers to these demands then are largely political. Getting the idea? With an eye on electoral gains, with an eye on electoral vote banks, etc. So yeah, obviously, most of the political commentators do say that this is time now, that we should set up a second states reorganization commission. So the case in favor or case against why we should have a second states reorganization commission, right? So territory is a big topic.